Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are taking a look back at Vanguard, the Tier 8 Premium British Battleship. So, the Look Back At series is a series I used to do back in the day to premium ships that had come out. I reviewed them, and a little while later I took a look back at them, or just some older premium ships. I took a look back at them throughout their years in World of Warships and see how they have aged. So today we're doing that with the Vanguard. Now the Vanguard is a ship I reviewed, and it sounds weird to say, but over 2 years ago now at this point, which that's just freaking mind-blowing that I reviewed the ship and it's been almost 2 years since then. Wow, does time fly when you're quarantined? But anyway, so the ship back then, I quite liked it. And to be honest, I still quite like it today. The ship hasn't changed at all, of course, but the game has most certainly changed since then. So the Vanguard, what is it about her that makes her special? So if you want a detailed breakdown of her stats and figures and such, please go check out my first impressions review of the Vanguard, and I go through all that in great detail. I'm just going to hit some of her highlights and some of her low points here as well. So off the bat, armor-wise, she's kind of okay and kind of not okay. The armor all around is pretty standard for British battleships and for Tier 8 battleships in general. However, her citadel is pretty high up out of the waterline, and if you do slip up, she can be punished quite severely. However, that is counteracted by another one of her key features. Also, it's talking about survivability. She has one of the highest pulls of hit points for her tier. She has 71,700 hit points, which is quite chunky for a Tier 8 battleship. And, of course, her armor, her citadel, is pretty exposed, and that is to compensate her in those regards. Speaking about survivability as well, her heal is quite good. It's an improved heal. It's kind of a Tier 8 Warspite heal, if you will. It's just short of being the British dry dock heal that can, heal back 2/3 of the ship's health pool in one go. So survivability wise, that's her highs and lows there. So basically, good amount of hit points, very good repair, high citadel, bit of a chunky ship. It is of course coated in 32mm of armor, and being a Tier 8 battleship, you will see plenty of Tier 10 games where there are plenty of HE spammy ships that can of course abuse you because of that. However, her other main point is her main battery guns. She has 8 381 15-inch guns. They are actually quite good. They have a sigma of 2.0 and a maximum dispersion of 239 meters at 20 kilometers. So, believe it or not, on paper, these should be some of the more accurate guns in the game, and at times, they are pretty darn good in the accuracy department, especially considering this is at the same tier with the Bismarck, which has 8 15-inch guns too, and Bismarck, even after the German battleship dispersion buff, still has issues hitting things past 12 kilometers. Vanguard does not in most cases. RNG does of course slap your shells around when it feels it needs to, but also Vanguard has a 25-second base reload time, which is quite nice. Also, Vanguard has normal BBAP. It doesn't have British BBAP that has the short fuse timer, and that is a good and a bad thing. Back when the British battleship line came out, I wasn't a big fan of the British battleship AP. Wasn't a big fan of the British battleships at all, and I'm still really not, because they of course spam HE, and I don't really agree with that. I think battleships should be firing AP most of the time, but it is what it is. Now, the short fuse AP was good for slapping cruisers around, because obviously with the short fuse time on the AP shells, you would get a lot less overpins on those cruisers. However, against battleships, you still get pins, but you get a lot of non-pins, and it's harder to citadel battleships with this short fuse time. So there is that, and Vanguard gave us a nice release from that. Now, Vanguard was also anticipated to be a tech line ship, obviously being an actual real steel ship. The ship was really built. It was actually the last battleship ever commissioned in the world. So that's pretty cool, and of course, since it was a British ship, they didn't make a museum ship out of it because reasons. I mean, it wasn't in service for that long, didn't really do a whole lot, but I mean, I guess they're not going to make a museum ship out of the Warspite, they're not going to make a museum ship out of this thing, so there's that. But anyway, the guns are quite nice. The firing angles on the guns aren't all that great. There's a little bit of German flavor in there with the rear turrets with their firing angles. But again, that's also offset by, again, another really nice gimmick of the ship. But anyway, before I move on from the guns, she is kind of the opposite of the British battleship line in another way with her HE. She only has 8 15-inch guns, and her HE shells only have a 34% chance of starting a fire, which is pretty decent for a battleship's HE fire chance. However, when you consider the Monarch also has a, well, actually it has a 35% chance of starting a fire with its HE shells, but it gets 9 guns instead of just 8, with a 25-second reload time as well. Yeah, you know, it can do it. It can spam HE, but it's most certainly not as good as its sister with the Monarch. Well, not sister, I guess cousin, because it's in the same line. If you wanna look at it like that, compare it to, you know, something like the Bismarck. Bismarck still has a 34% chance of starting a fire too on its HE shell. However, this is of course the same HE shell as the Monarch, so it does do a bit more damage there, and is very British in that its HE shells do a maximum damage of 6,300 damage per shell. So very British in that regard there. And of course, these shells fly out at around 804 meters a second. She has a range of 20 kilometers and a maximum AP shell damage of 11,700. So other than that, her AA is, when it first came out, it felt pretty good, but now, of course, CV reworked and all the really quick hot fixes that occurred, and where we are now, it's like it's okay against tier 8 CVs. Against tier 10 CVs, not so much, but heck, what is now? So her final big gimmick is, of course, her rudder shift time. She has a base rudder shift time of 9.7 seconds. The build that I'm running on it right now doesn't include any rudder modules at all. So this is a battleship with a 9.7 second rudder shift time. You can get it lower than that too, of course, with modules and stuff. That's better than a lot of cruisers at tier 8. That's better than a lot of cruisers at tier 10 too. It's freaking hilarious to see how quick this ship can turn. Now, it does have a big turning circle radius of 850 meters, but I mean, shoot, you can turn your rudder in under 10 seconds, who cares? And has a maximum speed of 31.5 knots with the speed flag. And concealment-wise, it does have a British battleship concealment rating of 12.6 kilometers, so, you know, nice and stealthy for a battleship there. So all that basically makes the Vanguard like a super large cruiser, and you can play it like a heavy cruiser. A lot of people, you know, they say it's like a mini Thunderer and all this, and in my eyes, it's really not a mini Thunderer. It is a Vanguard. I play it more like a really heavy cruiser. I play it closer to the enemy team, you know, not like right on top of them, but closer than most people probably would play Vanguard against the enemy team. And I use its maneuverability and its stealthiness to kind of dictate when I want to fight somebody, in a tier 8 match at least, or when I'm fighting a tier 8 ship. And with its maneuverability and its speed, you can pull off some really freaking ridiculous stuff. You should be watching a clip right now where I'm fighting a Bismarck and I think a New Mexico at the same time, and because of the great maneuverability of the Vanguard, I managed to pull some pretty silly stuff, and I'm angling to both of them at the same time while still managing to get full broadsides off on the Bismarck when I need to, and then I do something really silly with the New Mexico after that. So yeah, you can do really stupid stuff like this in the Vanguard. Now, of course, when you play at higher tiers, which again is a very real possibility for any tier 8 ship, I do play it more reserved, more in the back. I use more HE then, because 15-inch guns at tier 10, even with how accurate these guns usually are, it can't really cut it too much. You know, you can't just sling AP all the time. You will need to use that HE. With the accuracy of the guns and those British HE shells, it is quite effective. Now, from where it was when the ship was released to where it is now, has it really affected the Vanguard that much? Kinda, sorta. Because engagement range has increased at higher tier matches, and most of the time you're fighting now from maximum range almost for a good chunk of the match, at least for sure the first 6 to 7 minutes, if not the first half of the match, if your match doesn't go for 20 minutes. And again, a lot of times too, matches end in 6-7 minutes now as well, so you don't even really get to do that much damage. And of course, with the CV rework and all, and the way that the game's going, and with all the new cares that have been introduced, it's made the Vanguard a bit more challenging to play at higher tier, and Vanguard was already a pretty challenging ship to play in the first place. You had to have good situational awareness because you got that high citadel, and you can get blapped out of existence quite easily. But if you know what you're doing and know how to angle, you can still do very well in the Vanguard, and again, pull off some pretty silly stuff with it as well. So it's gone from being a pretty hard ship to play to now, in my eyes, a pretty challenging ship to play overall. But it can still do well. It still has its pretty accurate guns. It's 25-second reload time. It still has that great repair party with that pretty decent cooldown time on that repair party as well. I believe its cooldown time is somewhere in the 60-second range, which is pretty decent for a tier 8 battleship. That's getting, near Massachusetts. I think this actually is the same cooldown time as the Massachusetts Hill, in fact. So you got that going for you to kind of compensate you for your ship's squishiness. But again, if you know how to angle and stuff, you really won't be eating shells that you shouldn't be eating, because again, with the great rudder shift time on this ship, you can angle pretty quickly. And that's the thing I was talking about with the rear turrets. Yes, the rear turrets have pretty terrible firing angles, but considering you can just snap the ship out real quick and snap it back in, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, in my eyes at least. Now, there are situations where, of course, if you're stuck and you're staying still, in a tank like that, yeah, that does suck. But if you're in that situation with Vanguard, something's gone wrong, because Vanguard is a battleship that you just smash down W and you go. You stay on the move, you maneuver, you keep going. If you gotta do donuts in the back, you do donuts in the back. You just can't sit still in Vanguard. And it's a very fun battleship to play, in my opinion, in that regards, and does a pretty good job of reflecting this as like the last battleship being built. With all this new technology, it's fast, it's quick to maneuver, the guns are accurate, they reload pretty quickly too. If the AA was a bit better, I think it would be a pretty good representation of the actual ship, being a very modern battleship. But it's unfortunate that its AA isn't a bit better in my mind. But again, AA across the board is kind of just whatever. So is this a ship that you guys need to buy? I mean, if you're a collector, you probably already have this ship because of the historical significance of the Vanguard. But again, it's a very challenging battleship to play. I wouldn't really buy it unless you enjoy playing heavy cruisers and you go into it with that mentality, saying, this is just a really, 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 really big cruiser rather than a battleship. Then yeah, I think if you can go in with that mentality, you should get it. But again, keep in mind, it's a pretty challenging ship to play. If you're not really good at paying attention, minding your surroundings and things like that, then no, I wouldn't recommend this to you guys, because again, it's a very challenging battleship to play. But it does have a pretty high skill ceiling as well, because a good Vanguard can be a very annoying thing to the enemy team. Alright guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you want to see more of this series where I take a look back at some older premium ships and see how they have aged throughout their tenure in World of Warships? Let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way now to 25,000 subscribers. We just passed 21,700 a couple days ago, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.